Evet, merhabalar. Um, this is my first presentation. Actually, I was not thinking about opening a YouTube channel and publishing and uploading my own videos. But due to coronavirus, and you know that there have been total lockdowns and rigid restrictions. So almost many of the people work from home or they stay at home because of this pandemic. And I thought that what can I do in these days besides writing or reading or making job applications? I want to make some presentations about my own expertise, and I want to publish them in my own YouTube channel. Actually, in the last video that I uploaded, I had some friends with me, but today I'm alone. In the next video, I'm going to talk about Ottoman history, the Ottoman cultural and political life in general. And so I want to make these presentations like 25 minutes long. Today, I will talk about some of the books. Here, I have 4 books with myself, and these books have one thing in common. They all address Ottoman history. The first book that I'm going to talk about is written by Erik Jan Zürcher. Erik Jan Zürcher is a very important historian. Currently, he lives in Netherlands, I think. I also published an article about Erik Jan Zürcher and this book on Politika Akademisi. You can find it online. Erik Jan Zürcher's book is called Modernleşen Türkiye'nin Tarihi. This is the translated version. The history of modern Turkey, I think it's the original language. Turkey and Modern History is the original name of the book. This book was published by İletişim Yayınları, and it has a great informative chapters about Turkish and Ottoman history, actually. So it begins with the westernization movements that started in the 18th century. So we can say that it's begin with Sultan Mahmud II reforms, and it goes on with the constitutional revolution period, the Jeune Turk movements, and finally it talks about the multi-party politics, and it in the last section it is called Huzursuz bir Demokrasi. So this book is Turkish, as I said. It talks about Turkey in 1980s until the early 1990s. This book is also very precious in terms of its bibliography. It is a very rich bibliography. On the other hand, in addition to this bibliography, you can find the biographies of the influential political figures or historical figures in Turkish and Ottoman Turkish history. For example, you can find the life of Behice Boran, you can find the life of Fahri Korutürk in an alphabetic order. You can find the life of Turhan Feyzioğlu at the end of this book. The second book that I'm going to talk about is was written by David Kushner. It tells the birth of Turkish nationalism. Here it's another Turkish book that I just took out of my library. David Kushner in this book talks about the period between 1876, so this means the first constitutional period in Ottoman history, in 1908, the second constitutional period. So it's the author analyzes the transformation of Turkish nationalism from the from the first constitutional period until the 1908, the second constitutional period, ikinci meşrutiyet. So in this book, we can learn how Turkish nationalism was born and how it got transformed in the course of time. For example, how was it before the Islamic times, and how Turkish identity got transformed in the Anatolian region. So you can find great information about the Turkish nationalism here. One of the interesting things about this book, David Kushner, Türk Milliyetçiliğinin Doğuşu, it is this. Actually, this book was first published in 1976 in London, but the interesting thing is that this book was first published in an Israeli university. So you know that Israel is a very young member state, nation state, but Israel has published this book for the first time, being a Jewish book state, deals with the Turkish political history very much. But in Turkey, so we couldn't be the country who published this book for the first time. But Israel, I think, was born in the late 1940s, and this book was firstly published in Israel, written by David Kushner. Another book about Ottoman history is a book authored by Kemal Karpat. It is analyzing Turkish political structures evolution from the first constitutional period. This means from 1876 until the 1980 military coup. So it covers actually a very long process. Kemal Karpat actually wrote this book in English, and Esin Soğancılar translated this in Turkish. Also, so this is the signature of Kemal Karpat. Once I met with Kemal Karpat in Bilim Sanat Vakfı actually used to belong to the Şehir University circles, but I think after a problem with the state right now Bilim Sanat Vakfı has a brand new administrators, I guess. And Kemal Karpat signed this book for me in 2018, when I was a first class master's student, I think. So in this book, there are some titles. It talks about military and politics. It talks about the political rule changes in the multi-party periods. It talks about socialism in Turkish context. It talks about the Turkey's Workers' Party. So the leftist class, how it was, we can learn from this book. This is the book by Kemal Karpat. Another book that I'm going to talk about, it's also, as I said, about Ottoman history. It is İmparatorluğun En Uzun Yılı, written by İlber Ortaylı. We all know who İlber Ortaylı is, and he also has a very funny caps on social media platforms. İmparatorluğun En Uzun Yüzyılı, the longest century of the empire. So this book generally covers the classical period of the Ottoman Empire. We can see interesting information about Sultan Mahmud time. Also, it talks about the centralization reforms. We know that the reforms were made in order to centralize the Ottoman government. It talks about the secular, legal, and reforms that has been made in the legal and educational fields. And at the end of the book, we can see a very huge bibliography, both having primary and secondary resources. so we can say that this book written by İlber Ortaylı is really good in terms of understanding Ottoman Turkish history. So, so I can say that İlber Ortaylı, Kemal Karpat, David Kushner, The Birth of Turkish Nationalism, and Erik Jan Zürcher is a very important scholar. Turkey, A Modern History. These books are really important in order to understand the basic dynamics of Ottoman Turkish history. Actually, these are generally covering the Ottoman history, but Zürcher's and Kemal Karpat's books also deal with the modern days, like after some in the years of the multi-party politics. In my next presentation, I will try to talk about Ottoman history. We all know that Ottomans used to have a multi-ethnic and multi-religious empire, and it is a very important legacy that the modern Turkish Republic has been built upon the ashes of Ottoman Empire. I will try to talk about the general characteristics of Ottoman Empire in my next presentation. I'm happy to make this presentation, and I'm gonna put the names of this book, so you can find the names of this books below the video. I think you can also reach some of them on their PDF versions on internet. Thanks for listening to me, and I wish all of you a happy day.